I read some books and I wanted to share them. So I have 3 books that I have actually read, at least part of, and then one that I haven't read but I got recently and I'm excited to try it out. Our first 2 books kind of fall along the same genre. They're both murder mysteries. One is a very traditional murder mystery, like the most traditional murder mystery you can think of, and the other one is a little bit more recent, and there was actually a TV show based off of it. Our very first one is Agatha Christie's The Mysterious Affair at Styles. So this was the first Agatha Christie book that I've read, and it is also her first book in the Hercule Poirot series. She has the Miss Maple series, I think. Haven't read any of that, but I wanted to read the Hercule Poirot series in order, so this is the first one. I really enjoyed this. This is a difficult book to read if you haven't read in a while, in particular, because this was written, what, 1920? Nailed it right in the head. This was published in 1920, and it also has a very, I almost want to say like elegant, the way that she writes is very, very thoughtful, and very good. And she's writing to describe this Austrian gentleman basically, who is the investigator. And so the voice is very, very unique, but it's kind of hard to sift through if you haven't read in a little bit. It's pretty akin to probably what you would read in high school. Now, I don't know if this is the case for every Agatha Christie Hercule Poirot book, but in this one in particular, there are sometimes little notes, and there's a map in here somewhere that kind of shows the crime scene, which made it more interesting and more fun to read because it really feels like you are figuring out the mystery with him. So here is the map. You can see this is not a very big book. It's a pretty thin book. In fact, it's less than 200 pages, 174 pages. Although it's short, I didn't go through it super quickly, but it was a very engaging story. Again, this was the first book that I had read coming back into reading, so I hadn't read for a fairly long time. Read for enjoyment, I guess. It's a very, very classic series of murder mysteries. I really enjoyed this one. I have the next few that I haven't had a chance to read because I've started going into other things, but I do plan on reading the other books as well. The next book is the book based on the TV series. I don't know if I said earlier in the video that the book was based on the TV series, but the TV series is actually based on the book. So this is The Killings at Badger's Drift by Caroline Graham, and this is the Midsummer Murders series of books. So there is an old British television show that is based around these books, and I think either it's still going or it wrapped up pretty recently. I watched almost every season of the TV show, and it's really, really good. I know when I was watching it was on Amazon Prime, but I don't know what it's on now. It's almost like, I think people call them cozy mysteries, where they're not super high stakes, but because all of the murders in this series, at least the TV show and this one, they all take a place in this parish or this village of Midsummer. I say with a little hesitancy. I think because it takes place in England, so I think what it is Midsummer is like the county, and then it takes place in a bunch of different villages in the county. Very, very good. Very easy to read. This is much easier to read than Agatha Christie because it was written, I want to say in the 80s. 1987. I am doing great with these dates today. Again, this is a series as well. It's episodic, so you don't really need to read the first one to read the second one, but I'm the kind of person where I have to read them in order, even with the Agatha Christie books, because these are, again, I mean, there's like a vague overarching story to both of these books, I believe. I mean, it's the same characters and things like that, but I don't know, just the kind of person that has to read them in order. The Killings at Badger's Drift is longer. It's over 200 pages, 250, something like that. So it's a bigger book, but again, a very quick read. And what I found, because I had watched the series before I had read the book, is the TV show actually follows the book along pretty well. So if you would want to, you could read the book and then watch the episode of the TV show, and I think they would probably line up well. I will say the book was a little confusing because there was a lot more detail in it, obviously, that the TV show left out. And as I was reading, I was kind of pairing to get together the story with the TV show. And so I think I confused myself a little bit because I was comparing as I was reading, which you won't do obviously if you read the book and then you watch the TV show. Either way, really, really good book. Really recommend it. Okay, the last book that I actually did read part of, this is the one that I am not even close to finishing, but I just have to talk about it because I really, really like it, is Dead Souls by Nikolai Gogol. I could try to say his last name with an accent, but I'm not gonna do it. I think it has a maki znaka in it, so I'm not even gonna, it's not gonna work.
Мягкий знак.
This book is so funny. It is a thick book. This is, let's see, 300 and, I don't know, 90 pages. Really, really, really good. This is the type of book that you are like assigned as probably in college. You're assigned in college and you're like, oh, what is this? This is like dumb and boring. But this is a hilarious book, I swear. I think in order to really get everything that you can out of this book, you need to have a little bit of understanding of pre-revolution Russia, because a lot of, and the culture, because a lot of the humor and the situation kind of is contingent on that understanding. It does not read as an old book. I was saying I had some difficulty reading the Agatha Christie because it was such a, like an elegant use of language, or it's kind of dense. I will say, again, I think you need to have some background understanding of the culture that it is talking about. This is one of those books, it's like a satirical, a dark comedy almost. So basically it's this guy who is going to different places and he's holding himself up as this well-traveled, intelligent kind of man, and he's going to these different feudal towns in Russia and he's saying, I'll buy your dead souls from you. And so this is a whole economic thing that you really have to look into because before reading it, because the whole story is based on this idea that these dead souls, or these dead serfs, which are indentured servants, they were worth money. So this guy is going around these towns trying to buy these dead souls, because they're dead but they're still listed as living on the census, so that he could sell them, or so that he could say, oh, I have this many souls to my name. So basically he looks more important than he is. So basically the way it works is the government takes a census, and if you don't know what a census is, you need to start there. But the government takes a census and they account for all of the indentured servants, or all the serfs on these people's land. If you have more serfs, you pay more in taxes. The problem is between the two periods of time when they take the census, people die, obviously. And so according to the government, even though they're technically dead, they're still alive because they haven't taken another census. Essentially, what the guy was doing is he was buying up these dead serfs that according to the government and the census were still alive, and he would sell them back to the government. I haven't read the entire book, but according to the government thinks these people are alive. This guy is purposefully buying the names of people who have died, and the people that he goes to and tries to propose this to are typically pretty happy to let him do this because they're already dead. So they're making money, like very negligible amounts of money, and he both can say that he owns 100 serfs, so he looks like a big shot, a hot shot, and then he can also go and sell these serfs. So he's scamming people. He's basically scamming people, and the whole book is talking about the misadventures of this guy as he goes around trying to scam people out of their money and their dead serfs. So, I don't know. I'm not explaining it very well. The only thing I can really say is that it's funny. You gotta read it. Even if you could get a sample, like the first chapter of this book, and read it, I would recommend it. I really enjoy it. And our last book, this one I have not read. This is The Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole. He posthumously won a Pulitzer Prize for this book. I have not read this book yet. I believe my sister had to for school, maybe for college, I'm not sure. It takes place in New Orleans, and the only thing I've really heard about this book is that it does a fantastic job of really making the people of New Orleans come alive. Again, I believe this is a pretty satirical book, so I'm excited to read it. I didn't mean to, but I have 4 books and 2 and 2 kind of are paired together. I will say, with this book and with Dead Souls, both of these, it's worth reading the introduction and any other information that they put in the beginning of these books. I'm the kind of person that usually skips that, and I don't even know if the Agatha Christie and Caroline Graham books had a forward or an introduction because I just skipped right past it. But there's so much information in the beginning of these books before you even get into them that I definitely recommend reading them. And I think if you're trying to get into reading bigger, kind of more dense books, that's a good way to start because they provide a lot of background information. And going back to this one, I will say, at least in this version of the book, in Dead Souls, it gives you a timeline, which is really fantastic, to giving you some historical background and some information to go off of. And there is this really, really long, I mean, it's probably 10 pages, if not longer. So you've got this huge introduction giving you some background in the history, some background on Nikolai Gogol, and also it tells you a little bit about the characters. And as you're reading the introduction, you're kind of like, well, you're just giving me the story, but you really need it to understand because there's some characters in there and it's kind of hard to keep track of the plot. If you have read Confederacy of Dunces, let me know. I'm really interested. I will read this after I finish reading Dead Souls. Smaller text, so I think this probably is a longer book than Dead Souls just for the fact that the text is smaller on the page. But yeah, I've been enjoying these more satirical older novels recently, I think. I forgot to say goodbye, but basically all of these books have been really, really fun to read and to get me back into reading. If you have any recommendations or if you have any thoughts on the books that I talked about today, please let me know. I'd love to hear about it. Bye.